UAE Red Crescent and OIC to sponsor 5,000 Indonesian orphans. Thousands of Dubai residents join the fight to beat breast cancer. And World Health Organization renews calls for social investments in health. This is 7 National News. In our top story this evening, the UAE Red Crescent Authority has signed an agreement with the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation to jointly sponsor 5,000 Indonesian orphans, all victims of the tsunami in Indonesia. The deal was signed by Muhammad Khalifa Al-Kamzi, Secretary-General of the RCA, and Ambassador Atta Al-Manan Bikit, Assistant Secretary-General of the OIC for Humanitarian Affairs. After signing the agreement, Al-Kamzi revealed that both sides also discussed setting up a partnership to provide drinking water to the victims of drought in the Horn of Africa. For his part, Bikit praised the care of His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Zayed Al Nahyan, ruler's representative in the Western region and chairman of the RCA. Over $100 billion is to be invested into GCC aviation construction over the next few years, according to a recent report which will be focused primarily towards the UAE. The Kuwait Financial Centre report stated that current capacity usage in the GCC stands at 115%, adding that the UAE is the only country to have spare capacity at its airport, operating below full capacity at 84%. Dubai International Airport has witnessed a rise from 22 million passengers to 60 million, a number that is expected to reach 90 million by 2020. The report added that by 2015, Dubai, Doha and Abu Dhabi airports will have an annual capacity of 190 million passengers. The centre also found that passenger traffic in the GCC expanded at 10% year-on-year between 2002 and 2010, compared to 1 to 3% growth on a global scale. If you're one of the privileged few to have a piece of the world all to yourself, then this next story will interest you. A Dubai-based developer and designer have joined forces to come up with what they say is the perfect solution for the owners of the world islands. Marvish Khan tells us about the floating homes.
It was at the peak of the construction boom in Dubai that the ultimate luxury destination was created. A series of 300 man-made islands forming an archipelago in the shape of the world. Some 8 years after the project was first announced, only one villa has been constructed on the island of Greenland. That's because developing on the world comes with its own set of challenges, obstacles one former Nakheel employee hopes to overcome.
The technical side of the construction was complex. It was under a very crushed construction period, and it wasn't something I think with hindsight I would ever want to replicate again, just because of that experience. Over the last few years, it's been in the back of my mind to try and look at the complexity of the problem and find an ideal solution for it.
And so a partnership was formed between an architect who now specializes in islands and the designer of glamorous super yachts.
With his brains and my good looks, we came up with this idea of the OM, which seemed to me a sensible solution, because you don't actually have to break ground on any of the islands to build one of these. It will be built on the mainland and then towed and positioned on or attached to the island.
Graham Henderson and Donald Starkey have dreamt up a solution to the world's problems. I'm standing here in the interior of a half-built yacht. The idea here is to construct the interiors of the OM here in a controlled environment and then ship it off to where the entire floating home will be constructed in Maritime City. Each OM will take about 18 to 22 months to complete. Starkey has been traveling the globe as brand ambassador for the OM. Most recently, he got interest at the Monaco Yacht Show and another potential client working with the Pearl development in Qatar. But first, make sure you have deep pockets. The OM comes at a cost.
It will be approximately half the value of a yacht of a similar size. A 32-meter yacht would currently cost in the order of $20 million. So we're thinking that it will be considerably less than that.
So is the duo of Henderson and Starkey on the brink of something great, or is their latest scheme just a pie in the sky?
There is nothing quite like it here, nor do we believe anywhere else in the world, so it is going to be unique. But it's not, I strongly believe, it's not one of these sort of pie-in-the-sky schemes. It is achievable and buildable and sensible, I believe.
They're ready to silence the skeptics.
Perhaps the skeptics should think about Dow as, the residents of Dubai, historically, went offshore for lengthy periods, 4 or 5 months, and they lived in small, creaky wooden vessels. I wouldn't say they were comfortable, but they managed it and secured their livelihood this way. So I suppose somewhere in the back of my mind, or in our minds, we were influenced by this maritime tradition.
Both architect and designer say their project is not only unique, but it's also feasible. The hope is that this pipe dream will bring the world to life. Mavish Khan, 7 National News.
As a response to Breast Cancer Awareness Month, over the weekend, thousands of residents joined hands in an attempt to make the biggest pink ribbon in an effort to show solidarity in the fight against the disease. Men, women and children came down to Maidan early on Friday morning. Each one stood for loved ones lost, those who survived and those who are still fighting the battle. Though the current existing record held by Saudi Arabia with a total number of 3,952 people wasn't broken, Breast Cancer Arabia in the UAE says the huge turnout was proof of the growing awareness and support among the public. Guinness World Records officials also added that such initiatives are significant.
What's lovely to see about this record is that everyone is coming together for such a good cause, and that's what our mass participation records really represent. So I'm very pleased to be a part of it and pleased to see the unity of the women and men supporting Breast Cancer Arabia.
In addition, organisers say this is the first event of this magnitude. Meanwhile, participants say they are proud to take part in such an event, which they hope will be instrumental in encouraging and supporting women to seek early diagnosis.
I think participating in events like this, in terms of raising awareness of breast cancer, it's just so important because there's so much kind of fun that surrounds it. There's so many people here. And I think just anything that happens on a big scale makes people aware of the kind of situation and hopefully just encourages people to actually go along to centres and get checked out and just, see if there's kind of any problems for themselves. And I think, generally the public are aware of things like breast cancer, but they don't always go for the checks and things. So coming along to something like this hopefully will be the impetus to sort of drive people to the clinics and actually get checked out.
30% of women in the UAE do not exercise, while 40% don't get enough sunshine, according to a recent report. The Lifestyle for Lifelong Bones showed that both Emirati and expat women in the UAE are at risk of not getting enough vitamin D from the sun, and 60% of women only do an hour of exercise or less each week. Vitamin D is essential for bones to absorb calcium, which is created when we are exposed to the sun. Experts say this low number of sun exposure for women in the country could push vitamin D deficiency up to high levels in the near future. The survey showed that 44% of Arabs claimed they do not do any exercise, while a third of Asians stated that they did minimal exercise. Looking to news abroad now, the World Health Organization called on governments to improve social conditions and reduce health gaps on Friday in the end of a global conference in Rio de Janeiro. In the past 3 days, more than 50 health ministers and dozens of officials from over 120 countries discussed strategies to tackle inequities that limit the access of millions of people to healthcare systems. At the end of the conference, authorities endorsed a document expressing commitment to improve the broader social conditions that affect people's health, like sanitation and food security. The Rio Political Declaration contains guidelines to help authorities address challenges like eradicating poverty and hunger, creating jobs and guaranteeing access to clean water and food.
We have now a global constituency determined to take concrete action to reduce health inequities as expressed in the Rio Political Declaration. The challenge now is to continue to share and learn from experiences on how actions on social determinants can be implemented, and also to expand and extend our efforts in these difficult global times.
Earlier this week, WHO officials had underscored the importance of maintaining health and social investments in spite of the deteriorating global economy. Last year, a UN report said efforts to cut hunger worldwide have been undermined by the global crisis, though the world remains on track to meet a goal of reducing poverty by 2015. Evacuation centres in Bangkok are bursting at its seams, with more flood victims pouring in to seek refuge while their homes are inundated with floodwaters. An old airport in northern Bangkok has turned into an evacuation centre, taking in more than 3,000 people from hardest-hit provinces like Pathum Thani, as well as residents in surrounding areas. The centre is itself at risk of being heavily flooded as waters continue to flow from the north. Officials say Thailand's worst flooding in 50 years has killed at least 342 people and devastated 7 industrialised areas to the north of Bangkok. Government officials said they hope to divert floodwaters from the north around the city and into the sea, but water has been overflowing from canals in northern Bangkok, leaving the fate of the capital city uncertain. Damage has been estimated at around $3.3 billion, leaving tens of thousands of people out of work. Up next, we have the day's business news for you, so stay with us.